What's up YouTube, Daryl here from Zephyr, and today I'm bringing you an update to Raidraptors. That's right, I took this Raidraptor deck to my local environment and it didn't do so well. It had some very terrible matchups actually, Yugioh being one of them, which in my opinion is probably one of the worst matchups for this deck, because the idea behind Raidraptors is to get to a Towers monster. Once you get to a Towers monster, you're then trying to set up by summoning a second Towers during your opponent's turn, but with Yugioh they literally don't care if you have a Towers, because they're just going to swing their monster into it and you're going to take all the damage. But I have learned a lot from it, so what I'm going to do is show you the list. It is the baseline list, talk you through what I will change, what I'm looking to adapt, and what I kind of felt held it back a little bit as well. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. So we're going to start off with a pretty standard lineup of Raidraptors, but let me tell you now, this is the best combo of the entire deck. Now, the amount of times that I did win my duels, it was because I opened up this combo here. You open up Bloom Vulture, use its effect to summon down Raider's Wing. Unless they can stop the Bloom Vulture, which more times out of 10, the only way they can do that is something like a Gamma, which is at 1, you're pretty much able to resolve your full combo. An Ash Blossom will hurt it a little bit, but if you've got an extender in the hand or just your normal summon which you have saved, you're still able to get into your Arsenal Falcon and do everything you need to. So the best thing about this is without using up your normal summon, you can use Bloom Vulture's effect, summon itself down with Raider's Wing. Yes, Raider's Wing can summon itself down by detaching material from a Dark XYZ, but the idea is you're getting both of these on the board. You're making a Raider's Knight that can't be targeted, so straight away you don't worry about Imperms or Veilers. You then work your way up into a Bracestrix, which again also doesn't worry about an Imperm, Veiler, or an Ash because it sets the card rather than searches the card. And then the only time you really fear an Ash Blossom is when you get to Arsenal Falcon, and at that point, because you haven't conducted your normal summon or used any of your extenders by that point, you then still have the ability to utilize it and go further to get you into a monster on the board, go into your Link summon, and then get your Arsenal Falcon, everything you need to. Great success. Speaking of our extenders, we are playing, of course, triple Raidraptor Strangle Lanius. This is the most expensive card in the main deck. Cry, as a super rare for this deck because it's only had 1 print, whereas everything else has had 2 prints now. Sometimes 3 prints in the form of stuff like Raider's Wing, because it's had a rare in a Megatin 21, I believe it was, plus the original ultra rare, and then a common in the most recent OTS set. Then, of course, we've got 3 Tribute Lanius. This is your ideal normal summon. If you don't open up the Bloom Vulture play, you still then have the normal summon of Tribute Lanius. Send your Mimicry, banish the Mimicry, get everything you need to. The one card that is so great, yet so annoying at the exact same time, is Triple Fuzzy Lanius. Now, the reason it's so great is because it summons itself and then replaces itself. The reason it's so bad is it locks you into Raidraptors for the entire turn. And that's one thing that I did have a bit of an issue with going through the game states. So there's a lot of times where my opponent was getting rid of my Roost, so I didn't really have the resource to recycle back. And there was times where I was like, right, okay, I need to kind of get into a generic link to something strong enough like an SP Little Knight in order to kind of help me break a board and build my board off the back of it. So there's always times where I'm like, if only I didn't have to rely on Fuzzy as much, I could then start utilizing more cards like that on a more consistent basis. So that's when you want to be looking at stuff like the Phantom Knight engine, but then you're going down Kaliuga Turnskit, which isn't the fun version at all. But I feel I could very easily see myself taking these out, taking out some of the other more specific extenders, which I'll talk about a little bit later on, and then putting in even more specific hand traps, or just looking at more additional cards that can allow me to adapt my extra deck a bit more so that I have a better breaking down of the natural game state. Something like Fenris can also be massively helpful in the deck because it just gives you a monster that is strong enough on its own and can deal with certain types of outs on the board. The only issue is if you're doing this particular play going second or going into game 2 and 3, chances are you do need to be a little bit worried about Nibiru, as Nibiru can cause you a couple of issues. But again, you can do your normal combo to get you to your Arsenal Falcon before your 5th summon, so that if they do Nibiru you then get into an Arsenal Falcon, and if they don't, you Arsenal Falcon lock them down anyway. So there's a couple of different routes around it, but if there are times when you need to, for example, go Bloom Vulture into Raider's Knight, make your way up, and then conduct a summon in order to get into your 5th summon before Arsenal Falcon, then you might be in a little bit of trouble. But that's just something to keep in mind of. Then for the one-offs, I'm playing the 1 Mimicry, the 1 Singing Lanius. This would be one of the cards that I would honestly cut in order to free up a bit more space. It's just a nice extender, but you do need to control a face-up XYZ. So, you know, it's just a nice level 4 if you want it. And then we've got the 1 Noir Lanius, the 1 Heal Eagle that just allows you to recycle your spells and traps, which is really important. The 1 Pain Lanius, I still like this as an option to search off of the back of the Noir Lanius, just so it's a different level, and then you can summon it down as a level 4. You will take a bit of burn damage, but more times than not, you're only going to take about 500, which is absolutely fine to give you more access to a rank 4. And the last kind of extension card is the Samorg Bird of Perfection. So we're going to be playing this at 3, just because if you normal or special any wing beast, you then get to use this as a normal summon. So it does allow you to get into your rank 4s without conducting a special summon, which sometimes can be very, very helpful, especially in a matchup such as like Yugioh when they're putting on the Unchained Soul of Rage. It can only link away with XYZ monsters. Yes, of course, it does mean that by the time you make the XYZ monster, you're in a bit of trouble. But if you were to go, okay, normal summon Raider's Knight, and then get the additional normal summon of the Samorg, you would then link those two together or overlay those together, and then straight away Rage can't target the monster you've made, so it can't then be utilized in order to extend higher. So sometimes that can be quite useful in regards to when you're facing down certain matchups like that are waiting on a special summon monster. Then onto the Raidraptor spells. We're only playing the 1 Roost, the 1 Rank Up Skip Force, and the 1 Raidraptor's Force. The only issue I found is like not being able to recycle this, but then on the benefit of that is a lot of people actually forget its graveyard effect, which is massively helpful for you to regain resource. So when they feel they've burnt you out of all the resource that you have, you're then going to go, okay, cool, banish this and a Raidraptor, bring back Arsenal Falcon. They're like, oh yeah, just floating towers, great. And then the only Raidraptor trap we play is the 1 Glorious Bright. Then with the hand trap lineup, this is one that makes this deck quite good, is it has quite a lot of space for hand traps. So we can go with triple Ash Blossom. I went with double Droll. Now for my local environment, I don't need this at all. It can go into my side deck rather than my main deck, and I'd probably consider something like Ghost Mourners. I decided to main deck DD Crows. I just felt that they could be a little bit useful for me in my current format and the environment that I was going into. Stuff like Voice's Voice, sometimes Yubel, Fire King, Tri Brigade, everything else like that. Didn't really come up as much as I'd like it to, so again, it's a flex spot for something a little bit more consistent. And then, of course, you've got the best hand trap, in my opinion, right now is triple Infinite Impermanence, followed up by double triple Tactics Talents and a single Call by the Grave to deal with those hand traps you need to worry about as well. So that's it for the entire main deck. I'll show you my side deck at the end of the video as well, just so you have a bit of an idea of what I was looking at playing for this particular build. Moving on to the extra deck. Now, this is a little bit too mono for my liking. I do want to change it up because there are times when I'll look at my extra deck and be like, really wish I had a generic card to go into. So we'll go over our big boss monsters down. So we've got 2 Rising Rebellion Falcon and the 1 Ultimate Falcon. I do feel like there are times when you can get the triple towers on the board. Absolutely fine, incredibly powerful lineup, no worries with it at all. But there are times when I look at my extra deck after I've gone through all my resource, this is one of the ones that is still floating around in there, and I'm like, okay, maybe I could, if I was looking for a reason to find other cards or space for other cards in the extra deck, this could be one of the ones that makes way, alongside with the Satellite Cannon Falcon as well, that can make a bit of way. 1 Arsenal Falcon, I think that's what you really need. 2 Brave Strix. Again, if you're really, really looking to tighten up the extra deck, you could cut down a Brave Strix, just because when you go into the second one, it's rare that you're actually going to be able to get a rank up that's going to be of use to you in order for it to rank up any further. So that's a bit of an issue. The only reason you play 2 is if they stop your first one, you have a second one to go for. But the idea is that I was making this with Raiders Knight, so it was a lot harder for them to stop. Speaking of 2 Raiders Knight, with a Raiders Wing was the idea behind it. Now, the reason I've got 2 Raiders Knight is not only can it go into, obviously, Brave Strix is your ideal one to go for, but there was a couple of times where I went into the Arc Rebellion Dragon, which just gave me a strong individual monster that was able to kind of wipe a board out. And the best thing is, if this is utilized with Raiders Wing as well, it can't be targeted and it can't be destroyed. Very helpful. 2 Force Strix. I can understand playing 3 if you really, really want to. I just kind of made this one of my focal points to recycle it off of Roost every time I got the chance to. Evil Swarm Nightmare was actually terrible for me because in every matchup that I played, so I ended up facing like Sky Strikers and Yubel, completely terrible, completely pointless. Like the Book of Moon effect doesn't come up. So this is the first one I'll be taking out for someone like an SP Little Knight, just so I have something a little bit more generic and a little bit more effective. And the final one is the 2 Y Strix. Pretty straightforward and simple on this one. I don't think you need 3 of this. If you're going to bump any of your Raiders up to 3, it'd be 4 Strix. But even then, I just feel there's a couple of bits of space in the extra deck that if you do get rid of Fuzzy Lanius, you can start opening it up for different options for yourself. And then that's when I'll be considering stuff like SP Little Knight, maybe IP Masquerena, definitely Dark the Dark Charmer. You'd probably still keep it dark focused so that you don't worry about the second part of the locks that you do produce on some of your plays. But it still gives you the ability to have that generic outs should you need to. Moving on to the extra deck, so for the monsters, I went with 2 Nibiru the Primal Being with 2 Phantasme. Now, the reason I went with Phantasme is I just like the idea that summoning it down, I was like, okay, well, if I'm up against Fire King Tri Brigade or just Fire King Snake Eyes, they will link quite a lot. And then being able to put a monster on my board that allows me to protect from targeting can be massively invaluable. Because I'm expecting quite a lot of targeted effects to be floating around, this could be very, very helpful for me. It was great in the Sky Striker matchup because obviously they were putting links on the board like no tomorrow, but then it wasn't so great in the Yubel matchup and everything else. Then for the spell cards, I went with pretty much the standard lineup of one Harpies and 2 Lightning Storms with 2 Cosmic Cyclones. Just in certain matchups, Cosmic Cyclones are actually massively invaluable. Just being able to deal with stuff like Eternal Favourite, being able to deal with stuff like Nightmare Pain. It obviously gives you 5 routes to dealing with back row, which is really important. I then decided to play a Floodgate in the form of anti-spell. Never came up, and like when it did come up, it was like not that useful for me. If I had got it early doors, it'd be relatively good, but ultimately it just doesn't really help you out as much. So definitely could be cut for something else. And then triple evenly matched. I just still really like this as a board breaker. Like at the end of the day, if I can break my opponent's board, leave them with very little. If not, then Lightning Storm away that last card. I can then build up my board because all I really need is 1, if not 2 cards to make my combo, and that then gives me into a towers, which when they're trying to regain resource is going to be nearly impossible for them to get past. So still really good, and even then if I leave my ultimate Falcon with a material, they're going to take burn during the end phase as well, which is a nice little 1000 damage swing. So that's it for the entire main deck and the extra deck. This was more so just to kind of give you a lowdown of the deck in general, what it looks like playing it pure. I haven't really updated it massively. The only big change is that I'm now playing the free Raiders wing, which to me is absolutely staple. I think initially I just didn't have a 3rd copy. I picked up my 3rd copy and I'm not going to be looking back. I just think it's such a great card to have because not only does it give you that ability to get into your Arsenal Falcon and Ultimate Falcon and everything else you need, but then after you've used it for its non-targeted effect, you can then still use it as an extender by detaching the material as well. So it gives you the best of everything you need, and it just allows you to end your board on a stronger outcome, or the strongest outcome as possible. Anyway, that's it for the entire profile with a bit of a breakdown and understanding of what I will change and what I will adapt going forward on it. I still think Raidraptors are a really kind of cool deck. I feel that being able to set other towers in certain matchups can nearly be auto wins. Like in a Sky Striker matchup, if they can't out that monster, it means that they have to go through stuff like access code to get stronger than it, but then when you're going into your Rise and Rebellion, it then means that access code needs to be more specifically made because it needs to get up to above 4K. Not to mention if it's got a Brave Strix below it, it needs to get up even higher. So if you get it above the stats of what an access code plus a link 3 would make it, which is 52 or 53, I believe, then you'll be able to deal with it straight away, and they can't really out the Rise and Rebellion, and it should be auto GG from that point on. Now, obviously, Strikers is a very niche particular style. The one deck I always highly advise you to avoid where at all possible is, of course, the Yubel matchup, because you will 99.999% of the time probably lose game 1 because they don't really need to do a lot to just swing into your monster and then complete the game from that point on. It really does come down to the side deck, and that's when you're going to need to start out in stuff like Nightmare Pain, and then neutralizing any of their other effects that not so much super poly with your board, because you don't need to worry about that as much, but you still need to worry about them attacking into your own monsters, attacking into the Geist Grinder that they give you. So you just really need to deal with Nightmare Pain as early and as possibly quickly as you can. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, as absolutely always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.